Hi, and today we're going to have a look at wax modelling and wax carving. Wax modelling is really quite a simple way of getting started making jewellery. It doesn't require a lot of tools or equipment, you don't need to spend a lot of money, and it's the sort of thing that you can do quite easily at home, so it's ideal. So we'll have a quick run through of the materials that you need first, and then some of the tools, and then we'll have a look at a simple exercise making a ring band, and we'll get started right away. Okay. So here we've got a selection of different types of waxes. We've got wax blocks, different thicknesses. We've got tubes of different shapes. There's a solid cylinder, and then we have wax wire. The wax comes in a variety of different colours, and the blue is like a medium hard, which is what we use generally for making jewellery. The green is very hard, it's quite brittle and flaky, and it's for using when you're doing very intricate, detailed pieces. And the wax, this wax wire is used for making sprues, for when you send it for casting, or you can make jewellery with this. This one's quite flexible. So for our purposes we'll be using blue wax. It's easily available, and I'll give you the addresses of places that you can buy it online. It's not expensive. Something like this is probably about £10, and you can make a whole load of rings out of something like this. And then wax block for making bigger pieces. You can get it in different slice thicknesses as well. Let's take a look at all the different tools that we'll need to model some wax. The first thing we need to do is to be able to cut the wax. So we can use a saw frame, regular jeweller's saw frame, with a thick saw blade like a 00 or 20, or you can get special wax saw blades that have teeth all the way around and cut through very quickly, but not very precisely. A thick saw blade's really good, and you can use that for sawing through the tube. Cut through quite easily. Once you've cut your wax, sawed off a section, then you can start using a scalpel blades. These are surgical scalpel blades, modelling knives. You can get them in, modelling art shops, and these are really good for scraping off wax, cutting it, just making up different shapes. You can scraping and cutting. You could also use a Stanley knife. Always cut away from you with a Stanley knife. Keep your fingers out of the way. Watch out for the sharp blades. They're very good for cutting, shaping, modelling. And then you can also use a file, a regular steel file. This one's half round, flat on one side, round on the other, and this one's quite coarse, and I got this in a regular hardware shop. And these you can just use as a regular file, and it will take off quite a lot of wax. You can see it building up there, and sometimes it gets clogged up. You can just brush it off, and that's a really nice way of modelling. And flatten edges off. You can go on the inside and model around the inside of a ring. You can also use small needle files. So this is a wax needle file, which has got very coarse little teeth on it. This one's great for going on the inside of rings. You can change the size, and then you can also use, when you're finishing off or when you're modelling, you can use quite coarse emery paper. So you can just put it on a table, rub it flat to create a flat edge, you can rub the surface to just give an even finish. And you can also use things like wire wool, Scotch-Brite to create texture. So those are the main, so that's cutting and filing. And then our last section of tools is the heating. So we use heat and flames to melt the wax, and you can melt it together, you can melt it to create textures and patterns, and to connect different pieces together. So these little blow torches are useful. You can melt quite easily. I also use this is a soldering iron, regular soldering iron. They're quite cheap. And one thing I don't have today is a little wax pen, which are very cheap. You can get them in many places, and they run on a little AA battery. And they have a very fine tip, little metal tip, that you can use to carve and melt the wax. And I'll put all these tools on the link. So those are all the tools and materials. And then we'll just have a quick look at actually making a ring. So I'm going to show you now how to make a simple wax ring. I'm using green wax, and this one is just one I happen to have at the moment. It's got a tall top section. This is for making sort of signet rings and for sort of fancy dress rings, stuff like that. But you can use just a plain circular one if you like. So first of all, I'll just make sure that it's sort of straight. This one's a bit needs straightening up, so I want the top edge to be perpendicular. So I'm using a 90-degree square to just true it up. And you can see, I hope you can see, it's just slightly proud on one end. So I'm going to just file that off, just so that we can get started on a straight edge. As you can notice, I'm not using my drawers to collect any of this wax, it's just going straight on the floor. So I'm just going to true that off nicely so that it's flat. And then, oops, I'm going to use some quite coarse paper just to flatten it off. That's quite nice. And then I'm going to make a ring that's going to be 10 millimeters wide. So I've marked that out with my dividers, 10 millimeters, and I'm going to mark that on the wax here, all the way around. Got a nice line to follow. Got a nice line on there. Start cutting through. I'm erring on the side of caution a little bit. I've put a thick wax cutting blade onto this saw because this green wax is quite hard, and this will just cut through a lot quicker. So it helps to just blow away the wax as you're cutting through, so you can see what's going on. Keep the blade cutting vertically so you can keep a nice straight line. Sometimes the blade can melt the wax and you can get stuck. If the blade gets stuck, you can just undo the blade and pull it out with a pair of pliers. So there we've got our blank, as it were. and again it's a bit crooked and it's a bit wonky, so I'm going to file it flat. I'm going to file it back to the line that we marked. Alright, so that's good. I'm leaving a little bit just extra so there's something to play with. So then we have a nice blank to start with. I'm not going to cut this point off at the moment. I'm going to just make it a size that's going to fit my finger. So I'm going to go for a size N, and I've got, this is a wax ring sizer, and it's got a blade on one's edge here, and it works. Sorry, this one's a bit old, but it works. You just push it inside and you can twist it gently and it will take off, sort of slices out a nice even, you can clear it from time to time, and so this can make the inside of the ring as big as you like. So, see how that is. So I want, and this is nearly there, a little bit bigger. See how that is. So that's about right. So I can scrape with my scalpel blade, or I can cut. See if you can see a bit closer. And you can cut shapes, you can cut lines, you can mess about and just do whatever. Basically any mark that you make on the wax will come out in the casting. Even quite fine ones. So if you have scratches on the casting, on the wax, it'll come out in the casting. So I use a blade quite a lot for carving. I'll put some pictures of things that I've carved before so you can see the sort of amount of detail that you can do. But you can do quite a lot with just a blade. So now we're going to have a look at my favourite way of creating forms and shapes and patterns is using heat. And you can either use a blowtorch, and you can use that, to melt. You can polish with it. You can add some wax to another piece of wax, so I'm melting droplets of wax onto another to build up form. That's quite a nice way of doing it. Or with a bit more control is with I use a soldering iron. This one's quite a large one, but you can also use these little wax modeling pens that I'll show you on the link, for doing more precise melting. And this one you can melt. Let's go a bit closer. You can melt edges. You can sort of drill holes with it. It's really up to you. You can do all kinds of things. Create pools and ripples. And again, you can add wax. So I can take wax off one block, make a blob on here, on the tip, and then you can drop it on to the piece. make little beads. I'm not doing it so fine here, but you could get the idea. And also you can join bits together. So if I wanted to join these two together, I can just melt a joint here. Again, I'm doing it very roughly just to give you an idea. But you can join up edges. Sometimes you have to work quite hard to make sure that there's no air bubbles in the join. But that's a nice way of connecting things. And again, you can really just play with these things. And the last technique I want to show you is using a pendant drill to carve with. This has got a sort of a small, this is a 1.5mm drill bit in it. And this can be used for for making holes, for settings. Don't forget where the glass is. And you need to be very careful. Keep your fingers away from the drill tip. But this, I'll just show you very basically. You can drill right through. If you have a stone to set, you can just drill out a hole to put the stone in, so that when it's cast, the stone can fit in there. And you can also use something like this, which is like a big conical burr, and these are great for removing wax as well. Just another way of filing it. This can go inside as well. Again, wear goggles. So that was a basic guide to all the tools, materials and techniques that we can use for wax carving. I hope you find them useful. I think the best thing is to just get started. I'll give you a list of the resources for places that you can buy all these pieces, and hopefully you can just order them all online and just have a play, experiment, make some mistakes, and hopefully make some nice pieces. And it'd be great to see what you've managed to do. Show me photos, or if you want some advice or instruction or guidance or whatever, let me know. I'll be happy to help. Okay, see you soon.